Hey, I'm joined here today with Mike Shapiro. We're at Live Alpha Training Facilities. We're gonna bring you guys some business life advice, and you're tuned in to Powered by Pat. Let's go.
Live Alpha, private training facilities. So we pretty much are very exclusive. We don't do memberships. Like, you know, this is very exclusive to just our clients. Pretty much personal training, private, one-on-one, and that's about it. We do offer day passes if someone, if you guys ever want to come just work out for a day, we do offer that. This is some of the best equipment in the game. It's real leaders. We're the first gym in America to carry this line. They're huge in like Europe, Dubai. So yeah, this is some of the best equipment, bodybuilding equipment in here. This is my first gym. Obviously, we just opened up like less than 3 months ago. So I was just I had a huge team, private training. I was just renting space out of like other gyms. And my team grew so much. I coach a lot of like athletes, bodybuilding, like world champions. So yeah, my team started growing a lot over the past like 5 years. And I have like about 8 employees, 8 trainers that work for me, train my clients all day long. And yeah, this is our very first gym, and
man, this is crazy for being your first place.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
This is insane.
Yeah,
you got a extreme high level of standard. If this is your first gym.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it right. I wanted everything my way. That's why I waited, that long. I could have opened this, gym like 2 years ago, but I was like, nah, I want to do it right. And just do it my way, I have every equipment that I want, and yeah.
How'd you find out about this equipment line?
So I'm originally from Dubai, so I have a lot of connects out there, and I knew this is some of the best equipment. So I got in contact with the owner. I'm like, look, I'll promote your brand out in America, and if there's something we could work. So we worked on a good deal, and they were able to ship out all this from Dubai pretty much out here.
How did you get in touch with Mike? Did Mike find you guys, or?
Yeah, I mean, Mike pretty much found us at Selfmade, the other gym we were at. So he that's how he found us, and kind of just followed us along at our gym when we opened up. Nice. He actually, funny story, Mike is the one who found me the building. Without Mike, I probably this gym wouldn't have like existed, because I was having a hard time trying to find the right building. And right now, like getting the license to open a gym in Costa Mesa is like impossible, because there's like 20 private gyms around here, so they're not giving out the license anymore. So I got super lucky. Mike found me this place, and this was already a gym before, so this building already had the license. Shout out to Mike Shapiro for finding like the perfect building. This is like our posing area. This is where all my bodybuilding athletes that are, competing, we pose in here. We got sauna. We got private showers, private showers. We got 2 of them. Private training is huge. There's a huge market for it, because there's, people with a lot of money here. They're self-conscious, they're into fitness. They want to look good, so.
They want it private.
They want exclusive.
What better place right here?
Yeah, they want exclusive. They don't. People like Mike Shapiro are not about to be in like a crowded gym, like they like exclusive private gyms. So we target those kind of clients.
What are your favorite pieces of equipment in here?
Ooh, there's
that are like a little different than what the normal gyms got.
I would say probably this is one of my favorite pieces, and this is like have you ever seen this?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, so this is like a Smith machine, but it's single, and if you see it's at an angle, right? So you can get like a contraction at the top like that, versus a regular Smith machine, when you're doing chest, it goes like that, you feel a lot in your shoulder. So this is going inwards, so at the top you can literally like get a crazy squeeze.
That is nice. And that's like a hybrid.
Every single piece of equipment, right? Like,
I love this color scheme too.
Yeah, this is like a Ferrari.
Green, bro, that's crazy.
Like most of the machines at other gyms, like chest press will go just like that. So it's you feel it a lot in your shoulder, but these machines, like if you notice, at the top it goes inwards. Right, so you really like get to squeeze that chest and get that contract. So all these pieces of machines are like very unique and pretty much built for like bodybuilding, and if you really want to transform, you know, your physique. No injuries, you'll never get injured on these machines, and it'll target the muscle you should be targeting, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, amazing.
Let me ask you a question. What is your main goal? Do you want to build muscle?
Build muscle, lean muscle.
Okay, so in building muscle, the key ingredient is the squeeze. So you want to put, you know this already, or am I telling you stuff you don't know?
No. I want to.
So the key ingredient is that you want to put pressure on the cells. Basically, you want to get what they call the pump. Yep. So the pump is basically pushing the blood into your muscle that you're trying to isolate. So in this case, you're trying to isolate your lats. So let's go down there. So you want to really kind of focus and squeeze. It's really kind of not doing it fast, but actually doing it slow. Just pull down all the way down to your chest if you can. It's 1, 2. Sometimes you want to hold it 3, or hold for a second 4, 5, hold. 6, hold. 7, hold. 8, hold. 9, hold. 10, hold. 11, hold. Let's do one more. 12, whoop, hold. Okay, go up slowly. Okay, perfect. Okay, I got it. Okay. So that's the whole idea.
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions?
No, it's perfect.
All right.
Do you do time under tension?
It is. I mean,
kind of like a little.
Effectively speaking, it is like time under tension, and they have all these different. Like each body is different, and everybody has different things that work for them. So like all sorts of people have different ideas, but ultimately it's time under tension. Ultimately, the whole idea is you're putting pressure on the cells to grow, so you're trying to put as much blood as possible into the muscle.
So pumping blood into the muscle.
My fourth career as a personal trainer.
Yeah, pumping blood into the muscle and keeping it there.
So like, people don't understand that. So what used to be like when I first started out, so much science around this now, and so there's like lots of people talk about how many sets, and I personally think the sweet spot's a little higher reps, but some people say lower reps, but some people do it super slowly and do low reps. Some people do like hardly any weight at all. You can see massive guys doing hardly any weight at all. It's really interesting to watch. So
that's the time under tension theory, right?
Exactly.
Where it's the longer you stay under it, and which obviously you'll do less weight at that point. But when you rack those weights after that, you're like, whoa! I mean, you feel super weak after each set when you do time under tension. I feel like versus just repping out as much weight as you possibly can and doing as many as you can. I'm gonna go a little
So
lighter.
you're asking a question, why did I?
What got you into trading?
So my wife and I moved to Chicago. So we thought our fortunes lied in New York. We lived in New York City. She was really unhappy. And so, we were really young, and we decided to pack the car without jobs and move to Chicago. So she wanted to move back closer to home. I wasn't going to move to Peoria, Illinois, so the closest thing was Chicago. Great decision. We had really close friends. One of them was a trader on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. He said, "Hey Mike, I had an interview set up for jobs. Why don't you meet me for lunch?" I came down to the floor and immediately said, "This is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be a trader. I want to be on the floor." So that's how it happened.
Wow. It's crazy too that you did it in Chicago, because most people assume that you would be in New York.
The derivative markets, commodities, everything was in Chicago. There's Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Chicago Board of Trade, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange. So most of the derivative trading was occurring in Chicago, and futures of trading. So that's what was happening.
So you were mainly trading in commodities, derivatives, stuff
I started out early. I remember the '87 crash. So you remember when one called, what was it called, Black Friday or Black Monday? I can't even remember. God, I'm getting old. Anyway, the crash, I think it was the largest percentage crash ever. And I was there in the S&P pit. So I remember that very clearly. That's when I started out. And I was not a trader at that point. I was just, working as administrative staff. I was a nobody. So
that was right as you were starting out, that crash happened?
That was right as I was starting out.
Wow. What was that like seeing that happen and then thinking, like, you still went on to be a trader after that. You said you were.
It was wild. It was exciting. Yeah. I couldn't, like, the energy levels was, of course, I was a kid, so I didn't recognize the losses. I didn't see, like, the amount of money that was lost. Like, it was spectacular, and, I was just, the energy level was addictive. So I just loved it. I loved the whole feeling. It was all on trading cards, and so I was literally around the S&P 500 pit. So I was where the action was.
Wow.
So I was and all the world's, hedge funds and things at that moment in time were just putting orders into the pit. So I was an observer of an event like that, yes.
At the ground level. You never think that your size has anything to do with that.
It does.
That you needed to be a bigger guy to get your trades in and
because
have some presence.
Right, the more presence you had, it was like it's almost like it was a sport. Football game or hockey or something, but the bigger
it's active.
Right, it was active. So the bigger you were, the more you would be noticed, and it was just the game. Like, I wanted the trades, I wanted the business. So that's how it started, yeah.
You have like a group you were working out with, or were you just kind of going in there?
Yes, it was trader hour, and so all the guys were like trader, and so it was kind of a locker room mentality. We're all screaming, yelling, and like lifting heavier and heavier and heavier, and it was being really kind of stupid, and I would just lift really heavy weights, so I was really into that. So there's really actually no use to benching a lot of weight whatsoever. There's actually literally no...
All these people doing PRs and stuff all the time.
Right, it does nothing for you.
Unless you're competing, like you said, powerlifting and stuff, competition. I get that, but I have a younger brother. He's always talking about PRs and stuff. I'm just like, dude, what are you training for?
I know, it's kind of funny. I get a kick out of it. So every once in a while I'll say, so what do you bench? And like, I'll be in
that's the funniest
interviewing somebody totally unrelated, like lifting. I'm like, so what's your, what do you bench? And people, I think I'm being serious. And they're like, excuse me? I said, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that is a loaded question.
Like a little joke.
Last time I took that question serious was in high school. It's like, all right, it was like on the board, the training and that, you've kept up with it, and you look great, man, for your age.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, you're
being kind.
No, I'm not. I mean, I can tell you're strong. Like, it's years and years of training, and it keeps you young. It keeps you, involved and active.
I don't look a day over 90.
Nah. Talk about the edge, because it's funny that you're with a group of traders and you guys are starting to like work out and all these things together, and that these guys do this together. But for the guys that don't do that, the edge it gives you with your mindset, because it's not just about physical, in my opinion, when you're training. Because when I'm not training, I lose confidence, I lose that edge, I lose that motivation, that hunger, that drive. It kind of all just tapers down.
Sure.
I
think that one of the things about athletics, or I think one of the reasons that people love athletics or whatever the modality it is, it's not like a gray zone of like, I'm accomplished something. Like the work that you put into any kind of, in the gym, you can see results. So if you're dedicated, you're committed, you're consistent, you're, all of the things associated with everyone keeps talking about, you actually see results. Sometimes I think in business, it's a little more difficult. Sometimes there's like these zones, or like, how come this isn't working, how come it's not working? Bodybuilding gyms, really, they focus on it. So he has a team here that he tries to get people to get pro cards. So they're pursuing professional bodybuilding. And so all this equipment isolate the muscle in specific angles. So that's the reason there's so many pieces. And so we can do different things here to try to isolate.
What time do you usually train every day?
I train all different times of day.
Yeah.
So I have various Zoom calls. I'm busy during the day, so I try not to squeeze it.
Break your day up?
I do try to do it at least 5 days a week for me.
Nice.
So sometimes at the end of the day, sometimes at the beginning of the day, I do try to do that. So it's important to me.
You just split up your days and train every body part once a week?
I do. Sometimes I do it differently. Sometimes I do more athletic performance, or I do stretching. So I mix it up. As I've gotten older, it changes. Absolutely. It used to be just like,
non-stop.
It used to be just like bicep day, like it was really.
Just do that.
Right.
Yeah. How about your sleep? Do you try to?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good.
You try to go to sleep at the same time every night, or?
Yes. We'll try to get 7 hours.
What time do you usually?
11.
11?
Yeah. I tend to, read the Washington Post. Like, how many people read the Washington Post to go to sleep? So I read the Washington Post on my tablet to go to sleep, but I read probably 4 newspapers a day, like the last newspaper reader.
Did that start when you were trading?
Journal. Yeah, that started when I traded. I tell everybody I know, I tell you to read the Wall Street Journal every day.
Wow.
Whether electronic or in paper version, because I think that in the United States anyway, what people are looking at is, in the Wall Street Journal, sort of people have a finite bandwidth as far as what they can pay attention to. I think Wall Street is kind of consolidating, geopolitical events, economic events, treasury events all in one place, so you know what's happening. Wow. So the people that are, for lack of a description, in power, affecting probably your daily business life, are reading the Wall Street Journal. So read it.
A lot of people would think, oh, it's outdated. Why would I bother? But I totally see your point with that.
It's reading the algorithms of what you're interested in, and it's giving you information that you're normally interested in, not like edited information on many different subjects, and subsequently giving you a more balanced view of what's happening, so you can make better decisions in your business. And what's going on, why is it happening? Like, what are the probabilities of increased interest rates, lowering interest rates? What's happening in geopolitical issues which are affecting your daily life, believe it or not. I always say that, in the company that I'm part of in Seattle, which is an artificial intelligence company, everything is about pricing real estate by the second. So we're trying to price every residential piece of property in the United States by the second. So it's literally correlative to population, jobs, and things like that. They're not such obvious correlations, and that I think that you would get more of an understanding. And that's in regarding to whatever you're doing. So whatever your audience is interested in, if you want to build your media enterprise, what is your audience really interested in? What's happening? What's correlating? How is it working? Correct. So I think it also makes you more creative as well. So
I fully agree with that. And that's interesting too. I definitely want to bring that up, your project in Seattle.
Sure.
Because that's, like I said, you're going to really need to know what's going on and what's happening. But to have a well-rounded view, to be able to spot trends early and to prepare for things that are coming. Like, for instance, this year coming, everyone's talking about interest rates are going to get cut. So what will happen from that? By looking at social media, you're not going to get perspective on any of that. You're just going to get a bunch of opinions that are different. Like, one guy says this, the other guy says the total opposite.
Right.
And it's really confusing. It promotes inaction to where you're like, man, what am I supposed to do? It's hard to trust, your intuition at that point, or build an intuition.
I think everything is in time series. There's event horizons, what happens after those horizons, what happened to create that. So if you want to look at real estate business, for example, which I've been part of, there was a time series from probably about 95, 96 to 2008. And so let's just call that the time series of easy money. So that was a time series of, people were breathing, they were getting loans, okay? Which of course caused to some degree the 2008 crash. So you were very young at that moment in time. I remember what happened. So the 08 crash created another time series. So it was an easy money period of time. So what happened in 08? So we had massive destruction, valuation, and everything. There was just destructive values. Everything sort of collapsed, rethought it. The government was inserting themselves. I think they personally made a mistake when they didn't save Lehman, which is a whole nother point. I don't have to get into this right now, but they've learned their lesson. If you look at when they came into, remember the last bank failures, like Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, I think that they made a right decision in saving those banks, because it's a contagion. If you see something is something not too big to fail, you hear that too big to fail, because then it causes people stress, and then there's runs on banks. So I think that was a mistake. and he didn't save Lehman, and it sort of spiraled out of control, and you saw these, literally collapses. So that was one series, and then their 08 to 18 was another series, and that was a time where they completely revised lending, and it changed, and we had this massive uptick. I'd gone into the real estate business in 2008, and it changed dramatically, and then in around 18, there was a slight recession that was occurring. That's when I got out of it. Now, because of that, I just sold my business. I'm a trader after all, so I knew that, it wasn't that I knew something. You never say you know something. It just, it's an instinctual quality that I have as far as probable behavioral patterns. There's no such thing as forever. People don't understand their business. Like, one of the things that you always have to understand in business is nothing's forever, and that's a huge mistake that people make. So, like I said, I didn't know anything. I just sort of got out. 18 was a slight recession. It wasn't so bad, if you remember back then. And then we have a thing called COVID, which we all remember. We're in a gym. Like, businesses like this were a disaster. Anything where it was in person, that was another time series. At first, everything sort of collapsed. They didn't know what to do. But in fact, those businesses like real estate, they lowered rates to zero. It was explosive growth. I mean, anything associated with what you could do at home, technology, just explosive growth. All of the businesses that were not doing well during that period of time, like hospitality, airlines, gyms, anything that was in person was a disaster. So what happened after COVID? We have a reversal of fortune. So the federal government inserted massive amounts of liquidity, huge liquidity. So you have a post-COVID event. So what do? You have inflation, there's too much money out there, there's too much liquidity. So they jacked up rates, and they unwind the very businesses that were doing super well, but it was too well, for lack of description, which is a whole nother conversation. And if you look at what happened post-COVID, the real estate business went into a funk, transactional volume collapsed, mortgage business was terrible. The businesses that started doing well, the ones that was a disaster, like the gym business, the airline business, anyone in hospitality, anything that you couldn't be in person is suddenly explosive. Now you're seeing it sort of equalize. I believe in a thing called moving averages. I look at what is a probable point of probability in terms of where assets lie, or transactional volume, whatever you're looking at, and it's probably going to go back into those bands. Now they can trend up or trend down, but they're probably going to go back in those bands. So there's very rarely a time where, it just ends. Suddenly there's no more of that business. Right. There's usually massive warning signs, like you should get out of a business or something like that.
When did you first start feeling that you were seeing some success in trading, and then how did that lead you up until you basically saying, I'm gonna move on to real estate now?
Well, I didn't. I wouldn't say that I actually did it that way. I mean, learning how to be a really successful trader is almost anti-human. That sounds really weird, but the very elements of successful trading is disconnecting emotional context with your trades. So there are all these things when you're in the pit, like don't bring your wallet to the pit, if you know what I mean by that, like you're peeling your money on or off and making decisions. It's almost like, everyone who trades, you always hear people like it's gonna come back, like they'll buy into a stock or whatever, and they're like, it'll come back, but it doesn't. It's almost like people. This is kind of an odd thing to say, but like you hear people in relationships and they say, oh, this person's gonna change, and they never do. And so like, what are you waiting for? Now people do change, I'm not saying they don't, I don't wanna be like negative here. And so when you learn how to be, remove your emotional, become a successful trader. Learn not to pick tops and not to pick bottoms and all these sort of silly sayings. You just learn. You also learn momentum. You also learn the crowd noise. Like at that period of time, it was like the crowd, like all the major stocks of I ended up at the CBOE, Chicago Board of Options Exchange, and all the major stocks in the United States, if not multinationals, were trading. And you would hear like the noise from another pit, and you would look over, or the concept where I was like read the tape, because I was reading the tape. So you'd almost get you can almost feel the emotion or the human interaction. So today is very different. Most of it's machine trading. You don't really, it's not the same as it was. We were on trading cards. The reality is that people are making these decisions. Machines are making these decisions based on people's behavior. all that quant trading is isolating and understanding what humans do, and so they're trying to get an edge called alpha. If that makes any sense. So trading, for me, taught me so much from my other things that I did. It also gave me the opportunity to be a venture capitalist, and that's how I ended up getting into real estate. So I call it adventure capital. Do this. The key to biceps is to squeeze the final part of the bicep curl. So you want to force as much blood as possible into there.
Got it. What's your advice for somebody that is maybe starting a company or growing their company and wants to go to someone like you, a venture capitalist, to raise money or partner up?
I think it's really having a plan and understanding what the plan is, or having a narrative, or like being able to explain what you're doing in a very short period of time. I think that when people get into this like mess, like, you know, like sometimes I'll hear pitches like maybe an hour long. I'm like, what are you trying to do? What's the product? What's the service?
Confused.
So I think that it's like, if it's really like, this is what I want to do, this is what it's, and this is my opinion, this is not tried true. Everyone has different formulas. But I just look at the people, what have they done before? I look at, is there a narrative? I think that anything, any new business or idea has to have somebody who's a leader, that has a narrative, is able to explain what they're doing, has power within the framework of whatever that product or service is, like they can explain it rapidly, there's credibility, so I look for that. Terrible products out there because the marketing is great and people are buying it. So you want, in a weird sort of way, the ability to market or the ability to explain or the ability to have that narrative is a critical piece of the puzzle. So I don't think there's anything that I would say is one thing or another, because sometimes I'm surprised by, like after a conversation, I'm like, oh, it looks really good, that's really interesting. Yeah. Sometimes there's a company, a venture firm, I'm not going to name them, but they're in Utah, and they taught me something, that you never make an investment until you wait. I think it was like 6 months. You wait to see what happens after 6 months, to see if what they're saying is true, or they're really fulfilling what they're saying. So I've learned that. I watch. Now I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to watch, see how far you get.
Yeah.
Because, you know, how tenacious are they? The photographer, who's an amazing photographer, just asked me a question, which I love. And he asked me, how would you start in real estate? So basically asked me, how do you invest in real estate? So first of all, you study a lot. You understand the area that you want to invest in. You understand exactly what the price structures are. You make a decision, is this for income? Do you want to live in it? There are all these different questions. And honestly, real estate is about location. I don't mean to say the same thing that everyone always says, location, 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 but it's true. So those decision processes have to be made. So sometimes location may be a very poor location, but it may be a great location at one point. And so how are you investing? Are you doing seed capital? It's kind of like investing in a business. Like I'd like to invest in seed capital, and so I may be looking for a better return. So I may be taking a risk on an area that's not A+. So for example, you're all in Newport Beach here, A+ property. If something's on the ocean, there's a very little risk versus like something that's inland, far inland. So the more knowledge you have, the better off you are. So people make investment decisions without really understanding what the reason behind it. So there's a thing called cap rate. What is the return on the investment? So you have to look at it. Is that going to be stable? Has it been stable in the past? You have to look at the tenants. Has that been stability there? Have they been able to raise rates or rents? So there's a million different questions. So I think people rush into these investments, or people say, oh, the road to wealth is buying all this real estate. Maybe for that person, but maybe not. People make lots of mistakes, and timing is everything. And you know, are you looking to flip? Flipping is about buy on the buy side. You don't make your money until when you buy is when you make your money. If you don't buy it under value, you're not going to make money. So it's like hard. So I think there's a lot of people just talking about like buy. Like slowly roll, understand what you're doing, get information, get education, and that's what.
On the investment side, what was your first real estate investment?
It's our first house. So
would you consider that an investment because you're living there?
So this is a great question. I love this question because depending on where you are in the world or the nation. So our first house is in Chicago. And I guess people in Chicago at that moment in time never considered it an investment. They considered where they lived.
Right.
So there's always this adage about residential real estate about like, it's where you live, so it doesn't matter. It's like shelter.
It's a liability.
And there's even things people talk about like your net worth. But when moving further and further west, there's certain communities where it's very much an investment. It's very much part of your portfolio. You count as part of your net worth. In fact, when I recapitalized the real estate company, I noticed that people here in Newport Beach were looking at the real estate ads as almost like stock pages, like what's their house worth? They were appraising their net worth. Oh, wow. So I directed the real estate company to more replicate more of a brokerage firm, like a Merrill Lynch, for example, than something that was replicating a Coldwell Banker. To this day, it's even more so. I think that investment concept has happened more and more across the country. I think there are places where it would be considered shelter still, but overall, I think that people consider what they buy as their personal residence as an investment.
Definitely an investment. Especially when you see stuff like COVID happen and
Sure.
everyone's houses are now worth almost double.
Right.
If you are renting, you don't get that opportunity.
Right. Exactly.
So it's interesting because a lot of people say rent where you live and then use your capital to invest elsewhere so that it's an actual asset and it can cash flow for you as an asset. Whereas where you live, you're going to have to spend that regardless. You're not generating any income from it monthly, so it's not an asset as much.
I mean, there's many different people.
It's confusing.
It is confusing.
Especially for the younger audience.
I personally think that if you're buying a home, the better the location, the better the investment.
And the more equity you'll grow over time.
It's pretty simple. So I always say, like, don't buy house, buy your location, buy property. Because remember, what does a house do? House is made out of lumber and steel, and what does a house do? Depreciates.
Right.
It doesn't go up in value. I guess technically you could say it goes up in value because of inflation. Right. You know, how much more does it cost to do this? But what really appreciates?
The land.
The land.
Property, yeah.
So there's a thing called intrinsic and extrinsic value. So the intrinsic value is what's a value, what's the land. Why? So I think people need to think about that when they're buying their house.
That's definitely going to change my perspective.
So, I mean, you know, the better the location, the more likely you're going to make more money. Yep. But I mean, I don't mean to be like, just roll right over that. I mean, it's obviously affordability and like, you know, with people so buy the best you can in the best location. But that also means like some locations are newer and so like they may be the next great thing. There's lots of times that's happened.
Emerging areas.
Right, that's like seed capital.
Right.
I look at real estate as like in silos. So I think of real estate as in like 3 different silos. So, and I think they sort of replicate the stock market to some degree. Like one silo is luxury or premier, and those are, you know, probably 20, 25, maybe there's more in the nation. Places like called Aspen, Palm Beach, Newport Beach, I mean, New York City, parts of New York City. And there's like the preeminent where it is usually price driven, but there's a reason for that, and it's like high quality. And it really replicates the Dow Jones Industrial Average because the Dow Jones Industrial Average represents the best of the best in our nation as far as equities are concerned. The multinationals are the most value. Then I call secondary silo growth. Areas like Nashville, you're talking about it, or Austin, or up and coming areas, or there's like job growth, there's like things that are happening. It really looks like NASDAQ. NASDAQ has always been where the tech companies sat. Sometimes they're in both indexes, but that's really what I think of like growth areas, which are sometimes a great idea. Sometimes they go too far and then you can get really hurt. So growth areas are like, I'm on, and then all of a sudden you see like a negative play. And you know, and that's happening now to some degree. And I think the third silo is the S&P 500. S&P 500 is the biggest stocks in the world, and I almost call it the shelter. So those are like everything else is in, and so it really doesn't appreciate as fast. It's not a bad thing. It's just like it acts more like a shelter play, but it's still property. It still appreciates.
Safer play.
It's just a different. It's I wouldn't say it's the safest would be the Dow, but it's a different game altogether. And a lot of these things are in each other's indexes, and a lot of them may be part of different silos. So there are growth areas that are next to like A+ property, or there are sort of NASDAQ, Dow, and next door to one another. Like Seattle's a classic example of that, where there's like massive sort of a growth area because all the tech companies are up there. At the same time, there are areas that are sort of replicative of like, a Dow silo. So that's the way I look at it. I don't mean to like quantify.
And you being a trader, I can see you chose those analogies.
Right.
Because that's what you're familiar with. And
well, there's high correlative behaviors between the markets and stock market and housing market.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so you'll see high levels of correlation. So that's why I chose that, and that's something that I think is an indicator.
Yeah.
Just like interest rates are a high correlation to value, clearly. And real estate trades in a funny way. It's very delayed. It's called comp driven. So you don't see necessarily trend lines till way past.
Right.
So if you think about it, like, not to talk about real estate again. Sorry, you brought up the subject.
No, it's perfect.
Buyers of real estate are instantly reactive to the marketplace. They literally react to the daily, geopolitical issues, the price of lumber, everything. They're making price decisions by the second. Sellers of real estate are only looking at the comp. Yep. They don't look at anything else. So whatever the high comp was, regardless of the time frame, that's what we're looking at. So there's where the disconnect occurs, and that's why the time frame takes so long when you see longer stretches of time where a listing takes so much longer to sell. Because there's a disconnect between pricing. So that was why Plunk came about, which is like pricing real estate by the second. So it's really the perception of what is a buyer on that property at that moment in time, taking in all of this other data, all this correlative data that's driving a buyer's decision process. That was the idea behind it, versus like the seller, like, well, this is the comp. Like, explain this to me. Like, why is this worth it? Because like, I don't feel good about it anymore. You know what I mean? Something like that. So.
Because like just what happened in the market is values went up so much, and I have one property where someone in the neighborhood decided to sell their house for about $100,000 less than what they probably could have sold it for. So that threw off the comparables at that point. Now we're watching homes sit on the market for longer because it seems that prices are coming down as the market kind of gets stagnant, and comparables are a little less relevant right now because of what's going on. Like, there's still a low supply, but there's also a shortage of buyers or a shortage of people that are making those decisions right now to, get properties and want to take on the higher interest rate or whatever's going on, Exactly. It's kind of confusing just going off comparables.
It is. I mean, so...
And right now it's like showing where it's like, well, the comps were good, but we're still probably going to maybe break even or lose 10 to 15, maybe 20, 30,000 on this property because of what's happening in the market right now.
Correct.
And if you have holding cost and anything like that, and it sits for so long, you end up just being like, okay, let me just free up the capital and move on to the next project. Where I'm having to stop going primarily. I was doing fix and flips, and now I'm switching my strategy to more buy and hold because of what's going on in the market. I'm in Florida primarily, which is a good market for the most part.
Great market.
There's still a lot of growth and still a lot of activity going on there, but it's just really unusual what's happening right now.
Florida has every component of what we just discussed. It has all three silos. It has, prime Palm Beach, parts of Miami, some of the best real estate in the world. It has secondary growth areas because there's so many companies that have moved down there for tax reasons, for weather, because there's so many employees that are there, quality people that want to work there. And it has a third silo where it's like some parts where are just, probably not going to move a lot, more of a shelter play. I want to live in Florida. I just want it for the least amount of money as possible. So you see everything in Florida. It's a great state for real estate. California is the same thing. There's every conceivable type of thing. It's just different from a taxation point of view. I think that's a big driver for people going in. Sorry.
Also, like landlord laws here are a little less favorable, I would feel.
Yes. So it's I think that you rent properties out, obviously, and people have to think about it. It's not so easy. You have to get the right tenant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also things, maybe you can't get the tenant out. I mean,
That's
it's
the thing,
hard,
yeah.
you know, then your asset's dead in the water and like all sorts of things. So, I mean, you know, it's a skill set I think people should understand.
It's a long game.
I think it is a long game. I think it's a long-term strategy.
What do you, have you done fix and flips, or have you mainly done more of a buy and hold strategy in your portfolio?
Done, you know, a build or, you know, a spec house.
Yep.
I was really bad at it.
Yeah.
It was a disaster. So I have done fix and flips through, I guess, through others, for lack of description. But I have an issue with it because I understand that's always on the buy side. So from my perspective, I always have trouble seeing the value.
On just a quick flip or...
Right, I'm like, I don't see it. So,
yeah. So you prefer more of a buy and hold strategy?
Yes. Or investing with others in larger projects.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many different categories of real estate. Like real estate is like industrial, commercial, from office space to, you know, multi-units to, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it. Single families, development, but yes.
So you just kind of find your niche.
Yeah, like what do you...
Pick that and then it goes back to stay in your lane.
Right, some people are great at flips. You know, how do they do that? I mean, like, you know, they have their own system, they have their own way of doing it. They're able to get
in-house construction crew, turn them around fast.
They understand what people want to see,
right?
What people want to buy. I mean, it's all sorts of things. I mean, on a flip. And I think also flipping is about momentum. So I look at like stock. So if the property values are increasing, it's probably a higher probability that you're going to make money.
Yep. That's what we're seeing right now. And my partner, he specializes in fix and flips because he has an in-house construction crew.
There you go.
And that's just been like his hustle leading up to this. And now we're in this unique period where values aren't gaining right now. They're actually coming down some and the market's cooling off. So, you know, there's these talks and hopes of like, oh, they're going to cut interest rates. That's going to fire the values back up and get more people buying again. But who knows how that'll play out? You know, you don't really kind of know. And for me personally, since I have a less active role in that, I'm more like, I think I want to continue doing the buy and hold strategy, the BRRRR method, where we're buying them, rehabbing them, renting them out, and then refinance it, take out some good debt, and continue to compound.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if it works for you, I think that's a great, you know, there's no...
Because I see that's a way to scale, and at scale, I think we both can agree in 5, 10, 15 years, real estate's going to be worth a lot more than it is right now with the way we're going.
Yeah, you're young, so it's great. Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like, all right, to really build equity and wealth, hold on to it. Don't sell it, you know, and buy it with that criteria.
It's true, you know. Like the classic examples of these iBuying, you remember Zillow's disastrous entry into iBuying. Basically, they were fix and flips. They were trying to buy and fix it and flip it, and then they were going to make all this money. And it was a train wreck. I don't know what they lost on it. Maybe it was a bill. I don't know. It was massive. Yeah. So like you can't like institutionalize this concept. You have to be literally understand where the market is. And there's a time. It's like trading. I remember like some of the most profitable trades I ever made was I didn't make a trade. But like you walk into something like I'm a trader. It's like I trade. So like look at the market. Maybe you should not do anything. Yeah. Sometimes like that's the best thing to do. And so I think there are times which they blew it. But why were they buying that? Like, oh, I'm in this business, so I'm going to deploy all this capital. Like you were just going to lose money. I mean, there was no way to make money. There were no systems in place to really try to figure that out. They're still trying to do it, but I mean, I think it's very difficult to do. It's very, very granular. It's very hard to do this in an institutional way, in my opinion. Unless you have a hedge. What's a hedge? How do you hedge your bet? Right. You spend $1 billion, $2 billion in real estate. How are you going to hedge that if the market goes against you? It's an interesting. I mean, so far I guess I'm right. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll be right, but I mean, you'll be right if suddenly the market turns. Let's say all the interest rates go down and the market turns, and suddenly you see increased valuations, and you'll see all these sort of iBuying do really, really well. Right. So I mean, clearly.
Like you said, though, nothing lasts forever, and that's going to be a short run till you get to the next period of, you know, stagnation or whatever you want to call this, inflation period of it's making it hard to buy and it's making it hard to sell. So it's like, how do you make money? Especially you can relate coming from trading, where it's like, well, I'm a trader, but I haven't been making trades, and it's a market thing, you know.
I always say that it takes decades to make great wealth and 10 minutes to unwind it. And those 10 minutes are the most valuable 10 minutes in your career. What are you going to do with that 10 minutes? So every time there's a market collapse or issues, what are you doing with those? Is it time to buy? Most people run. It may be the time to buy. So like you said, it takes decades. And then, you know, we have these events. They seem to be getting closer together. It used to take a long time for these events to occur. They seem to be getting closer and closer together. So it's really when the markets are under stress that you want to make your moves and make those right decisions.
When there's blood in the streets, right?
Well, not literally.
When others are fearful, be greedy. When others are greedy, be fearful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting thing. I always just make fun of the pit.
Which is hard.
It is
so hard.
You know,
like I look at like Bitcoin, and I was buying some Bitcoin when it was at all-time highs. Then it goes back down to 15,000, and I'm like, I didn't make any moves at all. Now it's back up to 4, and I'm like, I should have picked some up when everyone was being so fearful of it, and it hit that low of a low. If I was really sure on being sold on Bitcoin being a good investment or something that's going to continue to gain value, I should have rebought in at that time. But I was so fearful because I had bought at the all-time highs and it went so low that I was just like, I don't know how low it's going to go. This is crazy. Now, of course, it's bouncing back up and you get that thought of like, should I buy more? And then I'm like, it's tough. It's a really tough game to play because, like you said,
I'm not a crypto guy.
Don't be a human, you know? I hear that.
I agree. Like, it's funny you say that because it's really pure emotional aspects to Bitcoin. So I remember, you know, a lot of guys in the fitness space or in gyms, and you know, they would be buying, and I would be literally saying, "Sell, please." I remember like Bitcoin was in 60,000 or something crazy. Sell, please, just sell half. And they're like, "You're wrong, Mike. You're wrong, Mike." I'm like, "Okay, I'm wrong. Just sell half. Take some of the money." It's like, "No, I'm in it to win it." You know, and of course we saw what happened.
Yeah, which is the message.
So I mean, like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with it, nor does anyone. If anyone pontificates what's going to happen to Bitcoin or any asset for that matter, I would run. So I don't know anything. But there's obviously an inherent valuation because if people believe something is a value, it is.
Right.
Okay?
That's tricky.
And so it is an interesting, you know, how do you trade Bitcoin? So people believe in its value, it is. There's probably some, if I were to look at all these charts and everything, there's probably going to come up with some theory of like probable, like normalized valuation is like where the base is. So people believe it's a value, so it is. I don't, but that's not relevant. Then again, I'm the guy reading 4 newspapers and no one else is.
Very true, but you know, people want a sure way to success, and that certainty only exists in certain things up until this point. Where it's just like it's such a new thing.
Right.
There's just anyone that says they're certain about any of that right now it hasn't existed long enough to even know. You know, it could plummet, and you know, I don't know. It's very manipulated. I know that by now. You know, and
sorry. I'm sure most of your people who watch this are thinking like,
well, it's exciting.
Crypto's great.
Yeah, it's exciting, especially for the younger generations. Just to watch something and, you know, to be a part of it. You know, it's a part of history for sure, but it's definitely a manipulated market, and it's definitely something that people still don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they're, you know, and then you look at guys like Michael Saylor, he's making such big bets on it, and then everyone's like, oh, he's an idiot, look at him, he lost, and then now it's going back up, and they're like, oh, this guy's a genius again, you know, and it just keeps going. So it's really interesting. I prefer real estate because I can pull up to it and be like, this is it. Like we own this, you know, this is cash flowing. They're paying us money. I see it in my bank. It's a more sure way, and it's real, it's tangible. But I did have some cash, and I decided to do the whole Bitcoin thing, and I'm just holding it just because you can't lose if you don't sell, right? So I'm in the position of most people, right? But I'm not actively gonna re-pursue that. I'm just kind of like letting that be like, okay, that's what I was willing to lose, and you know. So, but with real estate, I enjoy it, and I do find a lot of fun and passion, and over time I've managed to grow, and it's it's challenging, but it's a good challenge for me. Like I'm still learning so much, and I haven't had to be. It's not my earned income, so I haven't had to be super hands-on with it where it's like my full-time thing, but I enjoy every part of checking on it, checking in with my partner, going to look at the properties, being able to purchase new properties, getting tenants for the properties, doing renovations. So
you sound passionate about it.
Yeah,
so just keep
I'm starting
doing
to like find my lane.
That's good.
And I thought it was fix and flips, and I think now I see more of the value of buy and hold, because for me, it is more about long-term gain of wealth and being able to have an asset that you can either borrow back on or cash flow monthly, and end up net positive.
I agree.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Awesome.
Stay away from Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Sorry,
awesome.
I can't control myself.
Moral of the story. Uncle Mike said no Bitcoin.
There you go.
So we just wrapped up Back and Biceps with my man Mike Shapiro. We're at Live Alpha training facilities out here in Newport Beach, and we appreciate it today, man.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
it.
Enjoyed it. We have a pump.
Yeah, got a good pump in.
We got a pump.
Uncle Mike says no to Bitcoin, stick to real estate.
Oh, no. Do what you think is right. No.
So make sure you like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below what you want to see more content of. We appreciate Mike today. Make sure you check him out at Shapiro Method and give him a follow. Appreciate you guys tuning in.
Thank you so much.